is the February installment of the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee with the Metropolitan Council. I am your chair, David Fenley. Let's do a round of introductions, and when we're done with that, hopefully we will have one more person added to our group so we can hit a quorum. Let's start. I always go to you, Claudia, so why not go to you again?
Claudia Fugli, MNCCD.
Doug Cook, Metro Transit.
Richard Rowan, AARP.
Patsy Murphy, Precinct C.
Cheryl Schmidt, Metropolitan.
Again, David Fenley, chair.
Darrell Paulsen, I'm the vice chair, as well as I represent region or precinct or district F, I think. I'm not even quite sure, but I've been here for quite a while.
Kevin Petrie, recording secretary.
Patty Thorson, Trellis.
Diane Grimraff, Trellis.
Eric Henriksen, MCD.
Thank you all in the room. I see 2 online so far. Jeff, you want to go ahead, and then Michelle?
Jeff Danes, Precinct E.
Michelle Severson, Minnesota Council on Disability.
Thank you all very much. Let's dive into the agenda. I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
All right, Darrell moves.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no.
Aye.
Abstentions? Awesome. Thank you all very much. We did not have December minutes printed out, so we'll approve November minutes, because I think those were held up from last month too, right? Yeah, if memory serves me correctly, yeah. So I would take a motion to approve November's minutes, unless folks have thoughts or changes to the November minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Claudia.
Second.
All right, Patty seconds. All in favor? Aye, yes.
Aye.
Whatever you want. Yes, perfect. Opposed, no. Abstentions, great. Thank you all very much. We will have the December minutes in March. Let's just dive right in.
Nice job.
Let's just dive right into our business information. We have something on operator training with Dan. Come on down, Dan.
Dan's the man.
We have a fun packet from you too.
Good afternoon, chairperson, committee members. Unfortunately, Dan is unable to be here today. He had a kind of business that took him down to Rochester this afternoon. So my name is Peter Bloomgren. I work at Metro Transit. I'm a bus operator and a relief instructor. And this is
I'm Nicole Bond, also a bus operator and relief instructor.
Yeah, so we help to put together and facilitate the POD 2024 training program for bus transportation. It was also laid out to all frontline employees at Metro Transit and then their supervisors. So rail, we had TCC, we had some members from RCC, and then also like their supervisors and managers as well.
Could you move closer to the microphones? Thank you.
My apologies. So you'll have to forgive me if I miss a couple steps of decorum. This is our first time presenting here, so thank you for that. So we were asked here to just sort of deliver our kind of what we did. So we're going to spend the next, I believe, about half an hour or maybe 20 minutes kind of going through our training program that we created, and then we'll give you guys an opportunity for some questions, I believe, at the end there. Total, this was about, we rolled it out to about 1,600 frontline employees at Metro Transit. And it's called Moving Culture. It was really based around kind of bringing together both kind of, leadership at Metro Transit and then also, ATU members working together to kind of help to, change the overall culture of Metro Transit. It's no kind of secret, there was a culture survey that was done in 2023, I believe, in January, that was, that kind of, unearthed some distrust between leadership and some of the other individuals at Metro Transit. So this is also working towards, helping to kind of mend that, get everybody on the same page, that kind of thing. So I'm just kind of go slide by slide through this kind of long presentation that we had, just sort of briefly describe, what it was that we were talking about there. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think you got it.
All righty.
Oh, you can just tell the guy. Is there a guy in the back? A guy in the back?
Oh, excellent. So we did start out with a survey that sort of, took the temperature of, the operators and all that kind of stuff. Everybody that was in that class with us. It was a pretty short survey. We gave them about 5 minutes to go through that. There we go. There were a number of videos. We're going to kind of skip that one because we just don't have time to go through all the videos in the kind of short time that we had. This training was about 2.5 hours long. We did it twice a day for about 10 weeks from, I think it was like October to December.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about Metro Transit Forward, their vision and their mission, that kind of stuff. And then we started out with some goals for everybody. I'm just going to read these out loud real quick. So this will kind of give you kind of an overview of what our mission here was. So the student, I would say that's you and me and everybody else in this class here that we're taking, will gain information and tools to better understand and interact with diverse customers and coworkers. The student will have a better understanding of their support system as an employee at Metro Transit. So what that kind of talks about is, sort of that mending that leadership. Like, who is your customer? Like, my customer is the passenger. If you're an ATM, an assistant transportation manager, their customer would be, the bus operator. But sometimes, I would wear different hats. So I would, I'm a relief instructor also. So my customer in that role would be other bus operators. So just kind of getting everybody to look at the lens of like, who is your customer? How can you be supported? The student will be able to apply knowledge and tools to interact more confidently when confronted with difference. The student will demonstrate the ability to determine the appropriate course of action in relation to customer service by participating in class discussions. So it was very heavily focused on sharing your experiences, creating like a safe space, so to speak, for everybody to feel comfortable to kind of come together and talk about different issues. So we focused on Metro Transit Forward. We also talked a lot about the Great Workplace Project. This is particularly important because we kind of used the first 3 norms in the Great Workplace Project to sort of guide our curriculum. So that would be, number 1 is we treat each other with kindness, dignity, and respect. The second norm that they came up with here is we create an environment in which differences are embraced. And then the third one there being we hold ourselves accountable to meet our customers' needs. So, if we're treating each other with kindness, dignity, and respect, then we believe our contributions are valued. If we are creating an environment where differences are embraced and we feel safe and welcomed in the workplace, and then if we hold ourselves accountable to meet our customers' needs, we expect and trust each other to do our very best work in service of our mission, right? So we're talking about how do we carry this out in our everyday work. We're looking at progress, right, through different kind of lenses, the experience, service, and the employee, right? So, for example, if you are the employee, you'll know that you're making progress through things like job satisfaction, retention, hitting hiring targets, and an increased sense of safety. Through service, right, that's going to be things like on-time performance, increased service, and then more access. And then similarly with experience, we're looking at ridership increase, decrease in crime, and then, positive interactions. And then, we explained to everybody that, these are actually all interconnected, right? So for example, a decrease in crime, correlates directly to an increased sense of safety. So from the ridership or experience perspective, if we're, lowering crime, then we're increasing safety for the employee. We talked about workplace culture, and how it kind of relates. We would do like an activity here, ask people to stand up and clap their hands together, and it was a pretty good time. We talked a lot about, why is it important? That kind of had to do with like change, so how do we create change? And then why is that important, right? Work feels harder these days. Sometimes it's more than just driving. So we're looking at the realities that we face on our system all the time. There's a large unhoused population. Chemical dependency is like a huge huge, thing that, we have to deal with on the daily on our systems, on both bus and train. And so, why is it important that we all kind of remain adaptable and work towards changing? Service is different, right? We have a lot of different aspects of, Metro Transit. For example, BRT routes are very new, right? So, we're doing a lot of hiring, and there's a lot of people, that also might be coming to, the cities, and maybe they are riding a BRT route for the first time, and they don't know why they have to pay on the bus and not, on the platform. And so that could cause, some tension between customers and operators and that kind of stuff. And then relationships not always being their best. This is just sort of, again, kind of, highlighting that a little bit of, things that have happened with a little bit of distrust. Right? We're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So we're relating human psychology to workplace psychology, looking at, if you're not supported, how can you be expected to, give a lot, give extra? And then we started kind of talking about, this would be in the packets that we gave you guys, so this would be our social identity activity. So that was basically just like, we're gonna demonstrate and show a bunch of different examples of difference to all the employees. And we would start that by kind of looking at, the lens through which we see the world. So the idea being that, if you are, you can't really understand how different you are from other individuals without kind of understanding, where you come from. So it's all about looking at, your own perspective and your own lived experience before you start trying to, look at other people's perspectives and lived experiences. So this was our tool that we gave them. It's called Intent versus Impact. It's a tool for asking questions, which is basically boiled down to lead with need. So the idea is that, we are leading with our objective, before, as opposed to, just kind of like going into a situation being like, hey, I think that, you're a bus driver, right?
Not sure how to take that.
Yeah, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, well, pardon me for, just making that assumption there. And so, I'd say, well, I have a question about the Route 6. Are you a bus driver?
Oh, yes, I can help you with that.
Thank you so much.
That makes a lot, that sounded better, didn't it?
Yeah, so we do a little role play there and just talk about, how it's important when you're, dealing with a diverse group of individuals that you're not necessarily, just jumping in with questions that you might have and causing you to sort of like take a pause and think about that question before asking it. And maybe sometimes if you find that you don't really, if it's something that you could Google, then that might be a good idea, right? You could just try that first. Then if you do make a fence, right, which it happens, right? We're not all perfect, and we kind of have it, we're curious humans. If a fence has been made, now the second tool is to rebound there, right? So we're validating and appreciating instead of just apologizing. Of course, you want to apologize, and apologizing is important, but you're using this opportunity to understand that, like, I see how it is that I may have offended you there. Thank you for letting me know, because this is an opportunity for me to grow, and then letting them know how I'm going to change my actions, right? So I will try to do my best next time to not make an assumption about what it is that you do for work.
And now our relationship is still okay.
Yeah, we're best buds. So moving on here, we kind of boiled it down to a few different types of difference. First, we had a video here about, what was this one? This is an unconscious bias riddle. So we kind of looked at unconscious bias and how, just kind of everybody kind of knows what that is. So how do we, work towards utilizing that to understand, our own perspectives and not kind of be judgmental of other individuals. All right, before we got into that, we laid out a bunch of foundations here with kind of statistics about, who we served, all that kind of stuff. We are a company, looking at, what are kind of the, kind of very basic, high, intro level statistics around age, income, household, that kind of stuff. Who rides our system. right? So who are our customers? Who are our passengers? And then looking at, who are we? This slide talked a lot about, just what is, we're doing more with less these days. In 2018, you can see that we had more employees overall than in 2023, but we still are continuing to expand the system, so just understanding that, everybody is out there trying to do more than less, right? If you're feeling like, for example, there are less police officers and you're feeling like there's, more time being taken to kind of get to you in a critical incident or something like that, that's because there's just less staff available everywhere. So then we're looking at our workforce. We're breaking this down into kind of 4 categories: race, generations, disability, and then gender. Just as a kind of, looking at these, again, like kind of high level base, kind of ideas of what these statistics are. So comparing, our customer base to our workforce. Then we jump into kind of, before we talk about these different kinds of difference, we have to sort of, talk about what is DEI, because this is kind of very heavily focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we have a wonderful quote by Verna Myers here, right? And we just have a discussion about what is DEI. I'm going to let this one play just because this is a good example of some of the videos that we watched. This is a gentleman named Yassine. It's just about 2.5 minutes long. He is just giving his perspective of immigrating to the United States and then also starting as a bus operator at Metro Transit.
My name is Yassine Noor. I'm a Metro Transit going on 8 years now. Migrated to the United States 1999. For me, it wasn't much of a choice. My brother had immigrated in the lottery, and I was his dependent, so he applied for me to come and live with him. Culture shock. My first time, it was culture shock. Especially everything was big. Food, everything, houses, roads, everything was pretty big. But the biggest culture shock I had was the weather. It was either too cold or too hot. I speak 4 languages and a few more that I can understand in African. Yes, I spoke English fluently. Spoke English since I was a kid. I was lucky enough to start as a part-time driver, who's kind of brought me into it slowly. That way, by the time I became a full-time driver, I was more kind of used to what's going on a bigger level. So at first, it was so much to take in, beginning from policies, all kinds of structures, rules and regulations on the road, and how to deal with customers. So it was so many stuff to juggle. But patience, I got it. I would say the biggest adversity I had was my accent. It seems like some people would assume that you're not intelligent enough just because you have an accent. And as an immigrant to the United States, I always had that in the back of my head, wondering just because of my accent, somebody might not understand what I'm saying, and then assume that I didn't know what I was saying. Advice for non-native English speakers: I'll say be yourself, interact with people, go out, learn about other people's cultures, be sensitive to other people and the other cultures, just as much as you like them to be sensitive towards you. Just be yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Yassine. He did a very good job there. We really appreciate his participation. So I feel like this kind of gives you kind of an overarching idea of sort of like the direction that we were going with here. We have other videos that focused on different kinds of difference. So that was like, we also have things focused around English language learners, race. We looked at gender identity. We looked at and sexual orientation. We talked about how those are not the same. We looked at generations and then also disabilities. I feel like we're kind of running a little bit short on time. How much time do we have left?
You have about 18 minutes, I'd say.
Okay, I'll keep going then.
Yeah, keep going.
Alrighty.
Be mean if you're going too long.
All right,
You
cool.
mean me?
I appreciate
Can I ask
that.
questions, or how does he want to handle this?
It's up to you guys. If
Should
you
we
guys
go?
want to pepper in some questions here, that's fine. I'm
Sounds like you have a lot of stuff for us.
yeah, it is kind of a long thing. So.
How about clarification questions and then content questions at the end,
Sure.
just in case they get answered?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just wondering about, like, maybe we could pare it down to just focus it down to like disability related. We could start there, and then we can, then he could branch out to the other ones. And then at least we get those part of the presentation.
An emphasis on disability. Obviously,
Yeah.
we are all those as well.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. We encompass all that as well.
Yeah.
So we just.
So the things that we focused on with disability specifically, was a lot about, this whole kind of, idea of like customer service, right? Serving your customer. How do you, work towards, other individuals that have disabilities. In the packet that I gave you guys, we specifically included of the bus operator rule booking guides. This was given to all 1,600 individuals that we worked with during this training program. There's kind of a little info sheet on disabilities. It includes the specific, guidelines of, what is the ADA, what are the requirements for, boarding customers with disabilities. And so we also did what would I call it?
We did we called it Master Pod Theater.
Yes, Master Pod Theater being play on words.
So it was like we had a bus mock-up in the back of the room with an actual chair with the seats that flip up, and we did some role playing and stuff, and the good way and the bad way, and and we just kind of explained everything about the policies and just how to treat people basically.
And with
not that hard.
with a specific focus on it, seemed like so. Usually, the pod program is geared towards it's a training that we do every year to just bus operators. But again, like I said, this year we rolled it out to all frontline employees. It's usually the pod program is focused on things that maybe people are struggling with, and so the one big thing that we wanted to include that people have been seeming to struggle with is what is the bus operator's role in regard to helping someone with disabilities onto the bus. So in the role play, the big overarching kind of message that we were trying to get across was that according to the ADA, if someone with a disability asks for assistance getting onto the bus, then the operator is then required to get out of their seat and offer assistance to that individual. We talked about how, it's, sometimes someone might have a scooter or something, if that scooter, breaks down, they're not expected, to like push that scooter onto the bus. But we talked about the procedures after that regarding calling TCC, asking for guidance, communicating with that individual with that disability, as to, I'm sorry that I can't load you right now, or just following the procedure that we have. Yeah, so that was kind of our biggest focus with, other than talking about individuals with disabilities and different kinds of disabilities. I'd be happy we could play that video. It's about maybe 5 minutes long if that's something you guys want to see.
I'm fine with you going through your presentation, but
Okay.
just again emphasizing on the accessibility. I don't want to gloss over or do away with the rest of the stuff. I think.
Okay.
Understanding that people are whole humans and
Yeah.
we don't separate disability from any other aspect of our
Yeah, sorry.
of our identity. And I think once it's all all and, you know, this is kind of my approach to this. I don't want to,
Okay.
at the expense of other aspects of folks' identities, focus on disability, so
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll be quiet so you can.
So we had 4 videos, and they were focused on those different sorts of difference that I kind of explained already. So the last one that we did was a video that kind of talked about different kinds of disabilities. And then so we talked about, you know, what do you think of, when you first think of an individual that has a disability, what do you think of? We talked about how it's, you know, either deaf, blind, or limited mobility, or it can be. But the idea is those are just the visible disabilities. So we're trying, you know, parallels between, or we're just kind of, you know, talking about the difference between a visible disability and then an invisible disability. So we talk about, you know, what makes these things invisible. A lot of times I would say, you know, Parkinson's is a good example. You know, you wouldn't necessarily know that someone, you know, had Parkinson's unless they were actively having a tremor, or they, you know, maybe shared that information with you. So it's important to just, you know, understand that you might not, you know, somebody might not have a disability, or somebody might have a disability, and you wouldn't necessarily know it.
I feel like a lot of disabled folks and drivers could commiserate on how tired just getting through our day leaves us a lot of the time, and how others often don't understand how you can be sitting down most of the time and still be worn out. Both groups are doing a lot of work every day, mental, emotional, and physical, that just isn't obvious to or appreciated by most.
Yeah, so this is a quote from an individual who works for the Met Council. You know, when we were doing this research for this curriculum, we reached out to a number of different individuals. Mr. Cook here, one of them. And so this was through our Disabilities in the Workplace, ERG, that we have at Metro Transit. Angela gave us permission to share this portion of an email that she wrote to us. The idea, we're trying to find parallels between, you know, bus operators, rail operators, and individuals with disabilities to help garner, what's the word I'm looking for here?
It's just relatable.
Yeah, garner empathy, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, and then we're kind of tying it all into service, right? Who, you know, how do we work together? What does service mean? Sort of transitioning into customer service, and again, kind of talking about how, Metro Transit as a company, it is our, job to support our customers. Who is your customer? And we talk about, who is your customer? What does that mean to you? Again, what makes a good customer? What makes a bad customer is just a group activity that we would do. And then I believe, break time. So then we would pull up a second PowerPoint at this point, which I'm just going to take a pause here.
Yeah, kid might have a question.
Did you want to pause for questions, or do you have something else to pull up? You still have about 10 minutes left. You don't have to use up all the time, and I'm sure we have questions. In fact,
why don't we just take a pause? I think we've covered like
questions.
most of the bulk of it. So yeah, you guys, we can do questions. That's fine.
Okay.
Can I go first?
Yeah, Darrell.
Yeah, that's what I noticed here, and I've been watching the trip agents. I know I'm familiar with what they do, both from a local standpoint and both from an operator standpoint, relating to if there's an incident on the bus, relating to folks that have identified with mental illness or mental health issues. And what I'm saying is, I didn't really see a huge focus on that within your pods or within your presentation. And disability often is interactable within that space. So I figured that the disability would encompass all your pods, right? But mental health is a big issue. It's running rampant that's why you have the homeless population on your vehicles that you do. That's why the cities have invested thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to put social workers within their systems so that we can answer those calls that need to be answered on the stations. But what I'm saying is, I don't see a lot of that emphasis on presentations like this to groups like this. I do see those more in detail presentations in smaller groups, but I'm wondering why that isn't a focus of one of your videos or something, because mental health and disability and homelessness and drug use, it's all relatable, it's all interconnectable, and it needs to be talked about in a sense of a health issue, not as just a criminal drug problem. It's a health epidemic. It's not a drug issue at this point.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that perspective. I appreciate it. I would, what I hear you saying is, you want to see more of a focus on, mental health being a, kind of a something that leads into also the drug addiction kind of stuff and all that, and understanding its interconnectedness. Am I?
Yeah, and it goes to both sides. It goes to the side of the operator, the healthy side of the operator, because you want to make sure that they're getting the supports that they need, right, when they're faced with those kind of stuff. But also they also are at their own capacities, right? So then we got to support them so that they can continue to want to come back to work, right?
Yeah.
Even though they're faced with all that other stuff that they got to deal with, right?
Yeah, and I guess I would say the biggest focus that I chose, that we kind of chose to add around mental health specifically in this program, was kind of towards the end a little bit, where I'd use the opportunity when I facilitated the class, to talk about having a plan, knowing your support system, advocating for yourself, for from the operator's perspective. And then I would talk about, I would actually tell my own story of my own kind of mental health journey as being a gentleman who's diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, and sort of, what it's been like for me to try and, find medication and that kind of stuff. And there are a lot of hurdles that are a challenge for, especially individuals in a safety sensitive environment, towards, finding that kind of help. I think
Thank you for exposing yourself a little bit. And that's just what I was trying to say is it's that give and take of how can you provide the services and the supports to the community if you're not being supported yourself and you're not feeling that you're being supported. So, that's really what it is. So I commend you for sharing a little bit of your story, and I'm sorry I took up your time to do that.
that's okay. Thank you for bringing it out. Yeah.
Richard.
Yeah, I'm wondering, so our committee also has a purview of the senior community. We have at least 3 representatives that represent agencies that work with issues around seniors. And I see you have a generational aspect to your approach. I just wondered if you have anything to say about how you've approached the senior community as far as making people aware of their needs, and some who identify as with disabilities and some who don't. So.
Yeah, I think the biggest way that we would touch on that would be through the understanding that you don't necessarily know how old somebody is just by looking at them. I sort of lost my train of thought there.
Well, we have a video. We kind of talk about you mentioned generations, and we're focusing on how we all kind of bring something to the table. We all have a job to do. We all, and it's more on customer service. But he's right. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah. So, I guess that's what we got.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate some of the content that you bring before the operators in this training. I think it's good stuff. I guess kind of 2 questions. Is this an annual development training that all operators go through, or is this just once every couple of years, or how is this kind of training scheduled?
Traditionally, this is annually.
Okay.
This is the first one that we've done since 2019, so pre-pandemic.
Okay.
And the intent is to bring it back this year or in 2024, and continue to have it annually again.
Okay, so is it kind of a rinse and repeat, just kind of the same training, or is this something that kind of has a little flexibility on?
Yeah.
You had mentioned, there some of the operators might have had some, I want to say issues, but some things that were problematic that you wanted to bring to attention specifically about the ADA requirements, things like that you focused on. So I'm assuming
year by year, you have the flexibility to kind of alter the training in some way?
Well, it'll be a different theme, like theme-based, but as, you know, as new policies come through and new bulletins come through, everything it'll be touched on again, yes. So I think that
Yeah,
kinda
that
answered.
makes sense, okay. Because I guess where I'm going with that or leading to is if you ever have opportunities in these trainings to bring up some of the disability issues or requirements or how to, you know, interact, all that kind of stuff. If you don't have people in the room when you're developing that training with disabilities, there's an advantage you have. There's a team here at TAAC, which would be, I think, more than happy or willing to kind of look at some of the content that you're going to be providing and provide some feedback. It might not have to be through a formal meeting like we're having now. We appreciate this update. It's great to know it's been on our want to know kind of, I think, presentations for a while. But there's a lot of other different groups and entities that you could lean into. I don't know how you develop your programs or who you lean into. You might already be doing that, but I just want to express that TAAC is here. It's an email away. We can form either smaller groups and or just kind of get it circulated so that way we can provide some input and some feedback on kind of helping with that content.
I appreciate that, and we'll definitely take that into consideration for, you know, if we're needing something again. We did actually reach out when we first started developing this curriculum. Dan came and presented with Maureen Perryman, an assistant transportation manager from East Metro Garage, and the response we got was that, you know, there was no interest in participating. So we're here letting you know what we did.
Yeah, of course. But again, I think TAAC is another tool in the toolbox for that type of content.
Yeah, thank you.
Please reach out.
I appreciate it.
And we might, and just so you know, we might have changed, some of us might have changed our minds since then.
Good,
I do
yeah.
remember when you guys presented that. And I do remember, I think, why we weren't interested. And I think some of those factors are still prevalent today, but I also see a willingness for you guys to come to the table and be willing to have a serious, productive dialogue.
Yeah, we're definitely more than happy to participate. Yeah, we're open. Yeah.
I do remember that, and it was a timeline and capacity issue.
Yeah, was it?
That's what it was, yeah. I'm happy to share with you offline more details if you want, but
Was I there?
we can chat afterwards.
Okay.
He came and talked to us last year and then reached out for some interest
Afterwards,
from the group, and it was just, it was a lot.
Oh, I do remember.
It was a
that.
it was a lot. Yeah, it was a short timeline, and it was a lot of participation, and
We didn't have the capacity.
The timeline, I apologize for interrupting, but
Go ahead.
I can commiserate with that. The timeline was very short for us too. I think we started in like August and we rolled it out in October. So
yeah, I didn't want to lead you on.
I do remember that now. Yeah.
But again, just to reiterate, in the future, I mean, we're definitely open. So thank you for, re-engaging. I really appreciate that.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know if you can see or not, but I've had my hand up. So what I want to say is, understanding that the presentation you're providing us is a summary of a long 2.5-hour training program that's provided to staff. I want to say that from reviewing the materials ahead of time, it really seems like you hit the bucket areas that are important. Just because we're not hearing the focus on disability doesn't mean that wasn't dealt with. And, many times we get presentations where disability has been completely left off the list. So to see that it's an important component of the training you do, I want to commend you on that, first of all. Thank you. And I want also people to remember that training in this context is a balance. You're training around customer service for the agency. And we're focused on disability etiquette, treatment of people with disabilities, and that could be a whole different training in and of itself. So the balance that you have, I mean, that's what you're you're providing is a good balance, getting as much as you can under the umbrella of customer service. And I want to just identify that. That's what I saw in your presentation, without being privy to all the finite detail of what you presented. I think your general categorization was great, and it's probably more than drivers have ever gotten in the past. And I just want to make that clear that I gathered that from your presentation. So thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks a bunch.
Any other questions from folks online or in the room? Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Nicollet Mall bus changes. Kyle, come on down.
What are you gonna do about
Good afternoon, committee members. Oh, sorry. I'll just wait for our slides to come up here. Great.
We still got that guy behind the counter.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Kyle O'Donnell Burrows with Metro Transit. I'm here with Kathleen Mayall from the city of Minneapolis, and we're here to provide an update to the committee on proposed changes to Nicollet Mall and then the downtown transit on Nicollet Mall. So we're here. Our goal here is to really make sure that the Accessibility Advisory Committee is aware of these changes and able to provide their comments to us here today and feedback on the proposed changes, as well as provide just some general information about this project and upcoming next steps. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathleen to kick us off.
Thank you, Kyle. Good afternoon, all. My name is Kathleen Mayall. I'm with the City of Minneapolis Public Works. I'm a transportation planning manager in that group and have been working on this project, and thanks for having us here today. Make sure I've got the... Oh, yeah, oops, sorry, just getting used to this. Okay, so we'll go over the project impetus, what we've heard to date, what different options are on the table for where to move transit from Nicollet Mall, what we've done in phase 2 engagement, a little bit more on what's the plan for Nicollet Mall, our next steps, and any discussion you all want to have. So big picture, the reason that we are doing this project, it's because of a city vision for pedestrianizing Nicollet Mall, and this is supported by a number of different city-led and outside initiated efforts. While that is the driving force behind this project, we see this as a really good opportunity to improve transit downtown, and that aligns with our policy direction of our Transportation Action Plan, which I will share a little bit more with. This slide shows 4 of the different plans that have been released in the last year and a half, starting with the Vibrant Downtown Storefronts Work Group report that the mayor released in June of 2023, the Minneapolis Foundation Downtown Next, the city's Downtown Action Plan, and the Minneapolis Downtown Council's Downtown by Design 2035 plan. In all of these plans, Nicollet Mall is featured as a key initiative related to pedestrianizing Nicollet Mall. And so that really shows the growing momentum for that idea and vision. Our Transportation Action Plan is our 10-year planning document that guides our transportation work. There's a particular, there's a whole chapter related to transit and improvements to transit in the city, a particular strategy around improving speed and reliability of transit, and then there is a specific action about improving transit speed and reliability downtown, on Nicollet Mall, on Marquette and Second Avenues. The reason for that focus is because Nicollet Mall is such a critically important transit corridor today. There's nearly 12,000 people getting on and off the bus on Nicollet Mall every day, over 650 buses a day, 5 different routes that travel along the mall, and a whole suite of different demographic markers here that are shown on this slide that show a real need for this transit service. A lot of households without access to a car, living in poverty, and so on. The average speed of buses on Nicollet Mall right now is 5 miles per hour. And when you look at the chart at the upper left, the different light blue dots are different routes within the Metro Transit system. So Nicollet Mall is really an outlier when it comes to passenger delay throughout the whole regional system. On the y-axis, you see our Transportation Equity Priority Score. That is a metric that the city has developed, looking at a suite of different demographic pieces related to transportation equity. So it's fairly high there, outlier when it comes to passenger delay. And so what that really means is that there's both, I'd say, the need and the opportunity to make improvements. Big picture, putting those 4 different planning documents along a scale of a timeline. We have been, since the city kind of came up with this vision, we've been partnering with Metro Transit on what this would mean for transit, to remove transit from the mall, and spent the better part of 2023 and early part of 2024 kind of behind the scenes working on that. And then last end of summer, fall, did some initial engagement introducing the project and the different options. And then this past winter, well, December and January, we've really been out a lot, speaking with folks about this idea, what they think, more details about the trade-offs of the 3 options, which I'll share with you all. We are hoping to align with Metro Transit on a preferred corridor or corridors for moving transit this spring, and then formalizing that, doing some more engagement around that preferred concept and formalizing that with Metro Transit in the summer. So that is one piece of kind of like this larger timeline. So I just wanted to share contextually that as well. So making our efforts right now are on identifying a preferred transit corridor or corridors. That will then start and kick off the beginning of a capital project on whichever those corridors are chosen. There's kind of concurrent work going on related to Nicollet Mall and the activation and pedestrianization of Nicollet Mall that is clearly related to this project, but happening kind of different, a different effort, I guess I'll say. The earliest we're looking to move transit off the mall is 2026. And then when that capital transit project is completed is partially dependent on which corridor is selected. So that timeline is unknown currently. There are 2 big goals with our work. One is improving downtown transit, and 2 is increasing downtown vibrancy. Overall, we are looking for transit to remain as good or better than exists on Nicollet Mall today, and there are a suite of different sub-goals that we are measuring our different options, the 3 options against. They're listed on this slide, and they deal with passenger comfort, reliability, safety, access, waiting experiences, a simple and easy-to-use experience. There's also pieces around walking and biking downtown generally, greening downtown, curb space, what sort of access there is for loading, delivery, curbside access, and then safety as well. So phase 1, this was done late summer, early fall. We connected with hundreds of folks, thousands of folks. We had a survey, did pop-ups along the mall. We were out on the bus talking to bus riders. We gave formal presentations as well as had an open house downtown at the Central Library and had a suite of information up on our website, and want to share a bit about what we heard at that time. All of this is on our project website. There's a summary document outlining what we heard from phase 1. There's also all the full results from the survey and so on, the over 1,700 responses we got on the survey as well. Big picture, at that point, we got a big mixed reaction, right? There were people who were really excited about this project, and there were people who were really not excited about this project. Why are we doing this project? I don't want to move off the mall. I'm excited about this project. I think this option is the best, right? So we heard the whole gamut. And there's 3 different charts on this slide. The point here being you can slice and dice the data in different ways. The top right chart is a direct question on the survey, which was which option do you like best? A third of the people said I don't want to move. And then just over half of the respondents said one of the three options, but there was no real clear winner of which of those three people preferred. And then we also went through all the nearly 1,000 comments. We got open-ended comments, kind of coded them in terms of, is that a positive or a negative or a neutral sentiment against moving, or is there a particular preference for an option that was expressed? And you can see, again, there's both sides of the equation here, people who were excited and not excited or kind of indifferent to whether or not we move, as well as, in this bottom blue chart, it does show, about 50% for option 2, but that's only 94 respondents in that, so a much smaller sample size. Big picture, we heard a lot from folks, though, even though there was kind of this mixed reaction. And of all those open-ended comments and things that we have heard, top themes, so I'm going to share 9 of them. People were concerned about the distance to destinations and getting to Nicollet Mall and being taken further away from Nicollet Mall. At the same point, people were excited about the idea of pedestrianizing Nicollet Mall and what that would do downtown. People also are really like Nicollet Mall the way it functions today. It's familiar, it's convenient, they know where and how to access transit, and it gets them, where they want to be. The acknowledgement that bus riders really do help Nicollet Mall, all those 12,000 people getting on and off the bus, bring a lot of vibrancy. There was the call to address negative activity on the mall, independent of a transit project, with or without one. There was concern about the lack of kind of the same quality of urban environment on the 3 different options that we'll talk about here in a second, compared to Nicollet Mall. People talked about really wanting to see more retail on Nicollet Mall as well, and they wanted to see transit improvements regardless downtown, and there was excitement around that. And then again, just a real call to improve safety, be it on transit, at transit stops, downtown generally, on the mall, what have you, when it comes to safety downtown. So that's what we heard in the fall. Since that helped frame up kind of what we brought back and the different concerns that we tried to address in our most recent engagement. And so just to give a little bit on the 3 different options that we've been looking at, 2 of them use Marquette and 2nd Avenues, and I'll have a slide on each one, so I'll share that in more detail. And the 3rd one uses 3rd Avenue. So right now there's 5 routes on Nicollet Mall. In all 3 of the scenarios, the routes 11 and 25 move over to Hennepin Avenue. Those 2 routes carry about 20% of the passengers that currently ride on Nicollet Mall. And so the focus of what we've been working on is where does the route 10, 17, and 18 go? And notable is that the 10 will become the F line and the 18 is identified as a future BRT going south out of downtown, unidentified letter line right now, but in terms of Metro Transit plans for BRT. This is a map showing where the different routes come in and out of downtown and use Nicollet Mall. Notable also is the Orange Line and 33 express routes that currently use Marquette and 2nd Avenues. There's 2 southbound transit lanes on Marquette and 2 northbound transit lanes on 2nd that allows buses to pull around other buses that are stopped on both Marquette and 2nd. And this shows the 3 different options. And again, I have a slide on each one that you'll be able to see in a little more detail, but showing where the different routes would go. So in all 3 of these, right, there's 2 routes moving over to Hennepin and the 3 routes moving between either Marquette and 2nd or 3rd Avenues. To share some more detail about option 1, this is Marquette and 2nd. This is most close to what is currently out in the world today. So this retains the 2 southbound transit option lanes on Marquette and northbound on 2nd Avenue. The local and BRT service would move over here and would run on the same routes as the express service. The 2 lanes would be painted red, and we would plan to have BRT stops added and then consolidate the express service on the block faces that don't have those, or right where the BRT stop is. And you can see that with the black Metro Transit symbol. So express stops are consolidated. We would add a station, a BRT station on 7th and 8th to help minimize that transfer connection between the C&D lines and the different transit on these routes. And notable to the other options, this retains a longer walk for northbound transit riders to the light rail, because we would not be planning on adjusting any light rail connections here. The second option uses Marquette and 2nd Avenues, but adjusts the way those two corridors operate. So it would change it so that there's north and southbound transit service on both corridors and north and southbound general purpose traffic on both corridors. Outside lanes of transit only and inside general purpose traffic. This would consolidate the BRT and local service on Marquette and the express service on 2nd Avenue. And some of the impacts here would be that there'd be full-time parking removal on Marquette Avenue. Right now, there's off-peak parking for that entire stretch downtown. The curb work on Marquette to install the BRT stations. The express service on 2nd Avenue would be likely slower than today because they don't have those double transit lanes to pass different buses. Also on 2nd Avenue, there would be the removal of parking most of the time on 2nd Avenue. And then there's also the sidewalks on 2nd Avenue were not built and don't have the space without reconstruction for BRT station, or sorry, transit stations, full width standard transit stations. So a narrower sidewalk width there, which presents some challenges. 3rd Ave is the third option, and the proposed change here would be to take 2 general purpose traffic lanes and convert them to transit only lanes. We would also move the on-street paint and white bollard bikeway to behind the curb on the east side of the street, up at sidewalk level. In terms of impacts here, there'd be the loss of most of the parking along the stretch of 3rd Avenue. We would need to secure right-of-way easements to be able to fit this whole design into the right-of-way, limited boulevard space, and a longer walk to most of those destinations that Nicollet Mall riders are trying to get to today. And then just concerns, and actually this is echoed for the other 2 as well and mentioned in the top 9 themes, but just the urban environment, kind of the concerns around safety and waiting on a street with a pretty different character currently than Nicollet Mall. So to summarize, or to share some of the impacts for transit, all 3 of those options we would anticipate for the local and the local service that there'd be a 40% faster transit trip, and that's just while you're on the bus. It doesn't mean if you have to walk further or whatnot, but just the travel time on the bus. And that is because a number of different reasons, but one big one is on Nicollet Mall, buses can't pass each other. So if one bus is stopped and loading passengers, all the buses behind it are stopped. And because there are so many buses, that happens with some frequency. Travel times are expected to be more reliable and consistent than what currently exists on Nicollet Mall. And also because right now there's pretty consistently detours for different events and things happening on Nicollet Mall, that would go away and would be just a more consistent experience for transit riders that are using these different routes. And you wouldn't say, oh, is the farmer's market or the holidazzle, or what's going on and where is my bus today? In terms of express service, option 1, operations remain pretty similar to today, though there's a consolidation of those stop groups. So, your stop might change where it is on what block. Option 2, all express service goes to 2nd. We've talked about how the express service would likely be slower than today. And then on the west side of the sidewalk, narrower sidewalks. And under option 3, there's no proposed changes to express service. Marquette and 2nd would be left as is, and all the changes would be, on 3rd Avenue. So those are the 3, and I'll just share briefly where we've been the last couple months. So starting in December, really, we did a lot of outreach with the business community, as well as we were out at the Holidazzle, connecting with people on the mall, talking to them about proposed changes. And then January was really the big thrust of our engagement for phase 2. We met with a lot of different neighborhood organizations. We had 3 different open houses, including 1 virtual. one at the Central Library and one at the IDS Center. We did a number of different pop-ups. We were out on the buses most Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays of January, talking with transit riders and asking them to take the survey and whatnot. We went to our city's bicycle advisory committee, pedestrian advisory committee, the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities. We went to the Met Council's Equity Advisory Committee and the Met Council Transportation Committee. So a number of different events where we got out, talked to people, heard their concerns. We are gathering all that feedback now, and we'll be summarizing what we heard from phase 2 and including that on our website as well, and that will ultimately influence as well where we go with this project. So again, just noting that there is a lot of interest on, well, what's happening on Nicollet Mall, and there are planning efforts underway that is addressing that. That again is a little bit separate, but obviously super related to the impetus or the premise for all this work that we've been talking about and focusing on. So to recap, we're planning or hoping for a spring decision on a preferred corridor or corridors with Metro Transit. We'll have some engagement then following that, and the earliest implementation of transit and buses on new corridors would be in 2026. And that is the information we have to share today. Happy to hear thoughts, questions, reactions, and so on. Thank you.
Members,
Just a really, thank you, Chair. Just a really quick question. You went over these options are getting scored against your goals and sub-goals. We've heard kind of mixed reaction with your public outreach. Which one of these 3 options is scoring the highest based on the goals of all these plans?
Great question. Thank you, Chair, committee members. We have a chart up on our website that ranks all 3 of them against those goals with like red, yellow, green type indication. I'll say that in terms of what you'll see, option 1 has the least red. So I don't know that it has the most green. I can't recall off the top of my head, but that all of our boards from the open house are up on our website, and you can see that in detail.
And I'll just offer a clarification. Kathleen's correct on the coloring. I believe it's less of like it's not a quantitative score. Mm-hmm. It's comparing all these different options against each other. So it's not like there's one option compared and then it sort of wins and then that's the one that goes ahead. It's public engagement and outreach, that comparison that was referred to, some technical evaluation, all these things go into that.
And I would like to add too that what is up with our phase 2 boards is a reflection of prior to all the engagement, of phase 2. So we've connected with hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 2 months, and that will influence too how these different considerations are thought about as we hear from people in terms of what's important for them and what they think about, that type of thing.
And Ken has a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. Thanks for your presentation. As you heard when you came to Minneapolis Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities, we shared the concept that from a disability perspective, to change transportation service away from Nicollet Mall in any one of these configurations adds an additional burden to people with disabilities, specifically people with mobility disabilities. So we all know that downtown is a hub and we all get to downtown by various different means and then select a bus that's going to take us the rest of the way to our homes or whatever. Go from our homes to the central and then take a bus out. So downtown is a hub. If I'm going to have to get downtown on one of the outside lanes like Hennepin or 3rd Avenue, and then I need to go to the other to catch my next bus, I'm going to have to walk or cross an additional 3 blocks minimum to get to my next bus stop, which I do not have to do right now. I don't have to cross any streets. And for me as a blind individual, that's a challenge. Anytime I have to cross a street, there's a safety issue that I have to consider. That doesn't include closed sidewalks or closed passages, but there's an accessibility, a path of accessibility that could be disrupted and cause me to have to cross additional streets. Each street to cross is a safety issue for me as a blind individual. For somebody who's in a wheelchair or has mobility issues, for them to have to walk from one bus stop 3 extra blocks to get to their next bus is going to be also a barrier or a challenge for that individual, either in a chair, wheels, or with mobility equipment. And so in all of the presentation, I'm hearing goals related to downtown, goals related to improving transit time. And I understand that 40% really equals a 6 minutes advantage, which to me, 6 minutes is kind of questionable if that's enough of an advantage. 40% seems like a lot, but 6 minutes is 6 minutes. I wonder, though, where the priorities are for focusing on people with disabilities and what their needs are, or other participants in transportation systems. Everything I've heard is based on what's best for the transit system and getting downtown to meet its vibrancy goals. I agree. I love the vibrancy on Nicollet Mall, but I wonder if the transit wasn't there, how much of that vibrancy would disappear? Just because there are retail establishments on Nicollet Mall doesn't mean to me that it's going to have the same vibrancy without transit there. So I think those things need to be a part of the equation to evaluate. And I'll kind of just leave it at that.
Thank you, Ken. I really appreciate those comments, and they are definitely things we have heard and continue to hear, so I appreciate you highlighting them here. I think we saw a lot of those in our top 9 themes from round 1, and I'm certainly, well, I can't be sure until I see the summary, right? But I would not be surprised that those rank really high in terms of what we've heard this round too.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Jasmine.
Go, Sam. Thank you. Glad you're here.
Hi. Thanks so much for your presentation. I want to echo Ken's sentiments, and I want to add a couple more. I totally agree with everything Ken said in regards to moving off the Nicollet Mall. I guess my points would be, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. I've named my smart device ECHO, and guess what? I want to say that any of the businesses I've spoken with are not excited about this. They feel like it's going to take money away from them. They think it's going to take people away from them. I go to the library twice a week to teach, and I can tell you, as somebody who used to take express buses with the on the Marquette area, it is all good and fine. You know, with the, I understand the frustration may be with the bus drivers or whatever, if that the buses can only go singularly down Nicollet. But I will tell you, as somebody who used to wait and try to catch a bus on Marquette, when you have multiple buses going down that at the same time, and you have to catch your bus and you cannot see the bus number, it is really heavily anxiety running in and out between buses to check on your number and to see which bus that is on the outside, and hoping they don't pass you and hoping they really do stop, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to emphasize that too is a feeling of how many buses are you going to have packed up and how busy is that corridor going to be. Also, I just want to emphasize this is Minnesota. And we have to consider the winter months when everyone is freezing and it's below 32, and some people don't have means to dress warm or aren't dressing warm, and they need to catch a bus. And some of those, once you get off of Nicollet, sometimes even in the best of times, the things aren't shoveled as well. So anybody who has trouble or is in a wheelchair or whatever, walker, canes, that have trouble maneuvering through that could present a hazard to them as well. All right, that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. We're at time. I'm going to make 2 comment question seed planting things. You don't have to answer. Just to kind of build on Ken's comment a little bit, because it sounds like this is moving towards happening. It's just a matter of how is it going to happen. Do you all have data on, routes that transfer to other routes, and is there a way to line that up to where you have like the least possible, I got to walk over here, walk over back 3 blocks to avoid some of Ken's stuff? Is that something you can look at? And then, again, you don't have to answer this unless it's just a quick yes. You can do that.
The quick is a quick yes.
Okay,
and I'll just expand on that a little bit. Sorry to take the seat there. But so within the 3 options that we were looking at, understand that there is a lot of concern about moving, off of the mall, right, and sort of looking at one of these 3 options. Within these 3 options, things like proximity to destinations, self-reported destinations for riders who use buses on the mall, things like proximity to transfer locations are really important factors for us as we're looking at comparing these options. So yes, the sort of question of the mall or not, that many people, that's a frustration for many folks. Within these 3 options, we are looking very, very closely at transfer connections, at access to destinations, at sidewalk access, at access to skyways, a lot of different dimensions of sort of accessibility, broadly speaking.
Perfect, thank you. And then one other thing, again, you do not have to address this. This has been ongoing for as long as I've been doing this work, which is 10 years now. Anytime that you remove parking spots, especially in situations like this where they are on a nice, paved boulevard that are just inherently accessible parking spots for folks with disabilities who have vans with lifts, folks who don't or can't use public transit, they have their own cars. I do understand that there's this kind of push to sort of car society, and I agree with that, but the first people who lose out are the ones who can't car as quick as everybody else because we don't have the technology or the infrastructure in place, and that would be people with lift-equipped vehicles. I know it's come up with bike lanes, it's come up with, redoing Hennepin, redoing all the different corridors, so I'm sure it's come up here. That's not the business argument. I'm not a big... I don't jump on the side of businesses when they complain about removable parking. I care about accessible parking spots being removed, and that's just another thing. But we can get creative. We can move those to other places, maybe have like disability parking specific zones for people to go to, whatever it may be, just because that is kind of a slip through the cracks when we talk about removing parking on streets.
Thank you.
Don't have to answer, just plant the seed.
No, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
That's good.
Appreciate it.
That's
Thank you.
really good to do. You're right, most people don't come and take it because they live out in areas where they access, so they have to.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that.
I deal with it almost like every week.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Take it away.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jasna Hadzic-Stanek, and I'm a senior project administrator with Metro Transit Information. For those of you who may not be familiar with transit information, our department is responsible for providing accurate, customer-friendly information to all riders across the region. And we support this mission in a variety of ways, including contact call center, where we support customers in their trip planning and provide touch points for riders. Secondly, providing information on the street via static and dynamic signs at stops, shelters, and facilities, which is managed by our field operations. Thirdly, providing website tools and real-time information, which is managed and maintained by our data systems team. And finally, project management, where we plan and implement initiatives to improve access to transit information, which is the group that I'm in. And what brings me here today, the reason I'm here is to provide an overview of a project, which is to evaluate bus stop level signage at transit stops. So to give you a little bit of background, last updated between 2015 and 2017, stops with higher ridership but no shelter were treated to new sign panels that included detailed route information that you see pictured here. That information included route number, at the top sign that you see with the iconic T and the route numbers. And then in addition to that, we added a panel that included a frequency chart. So this would display how often that bus is running, and then a simplified route map, which includes the terminus, the starting point of that route. It's also indicated by a red outline to indicate a high frequency route, and then it also highlights some of the cross streets. In addition to that, we also had destinations listed at the bottom where the frequency chart is. However, during the pandemic, so between 2020 and 2022, it became very challenging to maintain these signs and the content on them due to the erratic service changes. So given this maintenance issue, it raised a broader question, and given that it's been a decade, it raised a question about the utility of these signs in general. I also want to acknowledge that in addition to having, it's now been 10 years, there have also been significant advances in customer information tools in that time, a number of apps connecting our customers technologically, and Metro Transit has also made significant investments in shelters and the Metro network, reducing the prevalence of these enhanced stops generally. So really our main objective here is to evaluate and conduct customer engagement and user testing to identify information needs at the stop level point in the customer journey. So this is really going to be a comprehensive effort to look at all of that information that's currently on our signage and ask, is this meeting the needs? Is there other information that could be added? Is there information that could be removed? And is there perhaps a different way to show it in terms of design? This is going to be a three-pronged approach, starting with data analysis of the current context and environment. So first of all, just understanding how many and where do we have these enhanced bus stops. When I say enhanced, that's 10 or more average weekly boardings. And then also comparing that and looking at, again, the expansion of our metro network, looking at better bus stops, which one of these received a shelter, or perhaps which one were eligible for a shelter, but there were site constraints, so we need to provide additional information on a sign because we cannot have a shelter there. The second portion of that will include engagement and evaluation, which will include two phases. I'll talk about that on the next slide. And then lastly, making recommendations if and what information should change to bus stops. In terms of our project timeline, so right now we are in that discovery phase. We are presenting to groups, meeting with other departments who will be impacted by this, and really looking at that analysis to make sure that we also right sizes with our maintenance resources and capacity. And then this spring and summer, we'll do our phase 1 engagement, which will include surveys, in-person, online, and also focus groups with a variety of groups, including people with English as a second language, people living with disabilities, and others. And then the focus of that really first phase will be to just have a menu of option and ask people to prioritize. We can't have it all. So if we need to show something, what should be shown on the signs? From there, we'll take that feedback and we will create some design options of what these new signs could look like. And we'll bring that back out later this summer for our second phase of engagement in our hopes to really capture frequent and riders who may be new to the system. And then lastly, in winter of 2025, we'll develop final recommendations with implementation expected to take place next year and beyond. So the main reason I'm here is we are just starting out on this project. So I wanted to make sure that we hear from this important group. So 2 questions that we can discuss now or kind of circle back later is how should we best engage with people living with disabilities? And then would TAAC like to be part of a focus group or one-on-one interviews to provide more in-depth feedback on the stop level signage? So with that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Darrell, take it away.
Thank you. Say your name for me again.
My name?
Yes.
Jasna.
Jasna. Thank you for your presentation. I actually like it. I think there's a huge opportunity for 1 or 2 of us to be involved with your project. One of the things that I would say is I am a bus rider. I'm a dependent bus rider. I ride the bus. Not in the wintertime as much as I should or as much as you would want me to, but I definitely ride the bus. The one thing I will tell you is that I learned a lot when I took a couple trips on behalf of people with disabilities in transit, and the Met Council gave me the opportunity to do that the last couple of years. And during those trips, I learned a couple things. I learned that Minnesota does a lot of things really well because they adapt it, they change it, they adapt it to our climate. One of the things that I noticed is that that signage information at the bus stops is getting to be an awful lot of information. And my eyes are getting bad. I'm an older person. My daughter had broken 6 pairs of my glasses over the last 12 years. Hence the reason I don't have my glasses now, and I haven't worn them for a couple years. She's a little older now. She should not be breaking my glasses, but
I've been there.
But anyway, long story short, I believe the solution is this: a QR code. A QR code for everything. And if you put that QR code on the bottom of your information, that also is more approachable for me to be able to aim my phone and to get that information. Guess what? Then I also can manipulate the information once it comes to my phone. I can manipulate the size of the text. I can manipulate whether I save the text, whether I put the text in a different document or anything, right? So that text that was once unreadable for me because it's so small, right? There's a lot of it becomes as approachable as it needs to be, whether it be my eyes are bad or whether I just need to retain that information for a later time or for my return trip, et cetera, et cetera. And what I noticed is those QR codes are often used on the East Coast and the West Coast in the world of transit. So the fact that we don't bring them to the Midwest, and people with disabilities have been actually talking about the accessibility of QR codes and what that means for almost as long as David says he's been part of the disability world, 10 years. So, I mean, that should at least be presented as one of your options. And it meets your accessibility needs. It will meet some of your translation needs for different languages, because you can immediately then translate that information into Spanish or Korean or Hmong. So, I mean, that thing is easily translatable. You don't have to reprint your materials. You can easily do it on the fly if there's another need to do so.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. And absolutely, that's exactly the type of feedback we're looking for. And then also we want to have an approach to our engagement that is comprehensive and where we can hear from people with different abilities, but then also people who may not be as digitally connected as well. So having that balance of how much information to show, how much of that should be digitally available, and so on. So very good comment and noted. Thank you.
Ken, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. And hi, Yasmin. Good to see you
Ken.
again.
Good to see you.
So a couple of things come to mind for me and for those that are blind or visually impaired. This is not a required sign system. So it would be above and beyond including the sign, which I'm always in favor of going above and beyond. Don't get me wrong. The problem is for those of us that are blind, visually impaired, we don't know that there may be signage anywhere nearby in a vicinity. So we would not have indication to go look for it necessarily. So there would need to be a huge education campaign around the inclusion of these this additional information that's available for passengers. That's one comment. The second comment is, how do you equivalently make the information available to someone who's blind? So you have information that's presented in print, and it sounds like the interest is having quite a bit of information. To convert that over to an accessible medium is going to be virtually impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's going to be quite a challenge. I would not suggest that all that information needs to be put in Braille. Braille is valuable, but only for those people that can read Braille, and that's a small percentage of our population. So we would need some other means of making that information accessible for those of us that are print disabled, and that includes quite a bit of other people than just blind, visually impaired. Those are some challenges that really need to be overcome. And I noticed in your presentation you identified, I don't remember what it was, but something was identified in the signage by a color. That won't work for people that can't see the color or people that can't see at all. There needs to be a physical characteristic denoting some different kind of information is being presented. There needs to be some physical characteristic which would indicate that something's different. Color alone is not an accessible format. And Darrell, I can hear you in the background. It's kind of rattling a little bit. So,
sorry, I apologize. I was doing a physical motion to Ken, so I'll talk to you about it offline. I do apologize. Sorry, Ken.
Okay. All right. It's just it's not helping with my train of thought here. So again, I think there's some interesting possibilities. I don't know that a QR code is the complete answer. I know a lot of blind, visually impaired people that just hate QR codes. They're sometimes difficult to find. They don't always work, and not every person with a disability, especially a visual disability, has a smartphone.
Exactly.
Many of us do, but not all of us do. So that eliminates some people from getting that information. So it's a challenge. I applaud you for trying to look at this as an issue and seeing what we might come up with. I think your idea of getting a smaller group together to try to figure out if there's a good way forward and what that might look like, at least a sounding board, might be a really good idea.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Darrell and then Claudia.
I do appreciate your comments, Ken, and once again I do apologize. But I want to ask you a quick question. We often talked about beacon technology and beacon opportunities, like we did at the airport a little bit. Would in this case, would a beacon be more relevant than a QR code, or could it enhance the QR code? Could it could it go along with the QR code? And then that solves your issue of not liking the QR code?
Well, once again, you need to have a smartphone to access the beacon to begin with.
Okay.
And beacons failed at the airport because of several reasons. Number one, they require batteries, and they can't be hardwired. And so one never knows when a beacon goes out. So it would require a huge amount of additional maintenance to ensure that those beacons were always accessible. Otherwise, they would be inaccessible and would violate our need for equality in terms of access to the information. So it creates additional problems. Beacons are really not a really good response with our technology today.
And as a secondary question to that, is there anything technology-wise that is close to that would not have the implications of needing the batteries and things like that?
That would take some digging to figure out.
Okay, thank you.
Claudia, go ahead.
The dream world would be, with the high tech we've got, somehow, some way to do an audio by the bus stops, where you can push the button, it'll tell you what route's coming in, where it's going. In today's world, I think that'd be a great idea, so long as it's safe.
Thank you, Claudia.
Can I answer that question? Claudia, we had those at one time. Those are in our system today in some of our spots. And if you look at when you push the button, those audio announcements are often not working. They're often out of date. If there's construction or any bus delays, those audio announcements are not in real time. So we already have that technology, and we're not currently maintaining it or updating it at this point.
Yeah, I've seen them in places, and it'd be nice if we could come up with something. So everybody
Am I
could use
right,
it.
Doug, on that? We do have that technology currently at the bus shelters, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And the bus stops. So.
Any other member question, comments? Yes.
Yeah, probably not, thank you, Mr. Chair, probably not too useful, but I see we have some time, so I'll just give some ideas. There's, I think, somewhere around 6,800 entities that operate transit in the United States, let alone there's a lot more around the world. So as you're doing your exploratory, probably already doing this, but why recreate the wheel? Try to find those novel approaches maybe some other entities have taken. It could be a deep dive, but needle in a haystack, but if you find the needle, it'll probably be really helpful towards your project. The other thing would be encouragement to think outside the box and be novel. I mean, when you're dealing with signs, everyone thinks of a placard, a metal sign with something printed on it. Try looking at the entire structure of the signpost and other ways to implement information, just beyond just the signage itself. No idea what that could mean. There's a lot of different things out there that, they implemented on the actual post or a base or, looking at other options for conveying information if it's overwhelming on just a sign. So that's all my feedback.
Great, thank you.
Any member questions, comments? Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the plan is for me to come back following phase one. I'll be in touch with you, Chair Finley, to see who would like to be involved in the focus groups. And then I would return after between phase one and phase two to provide an update. So
Yeah, let us know how many folks you want. I know Darrell's interested, but
Okay.
if you're open to more folks jumping in there,
sounds great.
let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have our subcommittee reports. Ken, did you want to talk about the blue line at all?
You're muted, Ken.
We cannot hear you.
happy that.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks. So we are meeting tonight at 6 p.m. and we haven't met in a bit, so looking forward to getting an update as to where we are and moving forward. I believe all the cities have provided consent. So we are in the next phase of our development, and I'm really anxious to hear the latest on what the stop at North Memorial Hospital is going to look like. There are quite a few options on the table, and so we should get some more information. This is when we start getting down to the nitty gritty and start talking about individual station designs, which I'm really anxious to get to. So I'm glad we're moving forward, and I'll have more after our meeting tonight.
And I don't think Chris is online, so we'll move to Darrell. Did you want to do Golden Purple Line updates?
I can give you a quick update on the Gold Line. We know they're set to open in March of March 23rd already of this year. It's been amazing. I can't believe it. I've been a part of that project almost 6 years now. So that's amazing. The Purple Line is a whole little different story. It's just a little bit different of an egg to crack. But what I can say about that is there's internal talks to not include the White Bear Avenue alignment, which is what we talked about last time they presented to you, as a proposed option as in efforts to not support the Bruce Vento Trail down the Bruce Vento corridor. They wanted to move it to White Bear Avenue. Now the mayor has been involved in secret conversations with all players involved, and now they're doing this push to talk about microbusing and some other things like that. And it's just a stall tactic to delay the inevitable of bringing actual viable project to the East Metro that the community has wanted, that they've asked for. Yes, they didn't want it down the Bruce Vento. We heard that very clear, even though that was the federal designated spot for it, and that is the federal designated spot currently for it. They're willing to open it up to the possibility of White Bear Avenue and things like that. But this is it's been really challenging for us to follow the timeline and the process. But I will tell you that we desperately need BRT and a fast rapid transit system to the East Metro. And these two projects will do that. The Purple Line won't exist the way we look at it today, but it will complement the Gold Line. That is why the Gold Line is there. We will use most of the stations with the Gold Line in conjunction with the Purple Line. So the Gold Line success is in addition to the Purple Line, and the Purple Line success is connected to the Gold Line. So it's a really interesting situation. If anybody wants to help me with it, Ken, I welcome your comments too, because I know you're working in transit outside of that space too. So if you have any suggestions how to work with other players, other community players, especially local officials, I welcome your comments, because it's not about the public being convinced that transit's necessary. It's about convincing the other local officials that it's worth the investment, even though they won't see it for a couple of years yet.
Thank you for those updates.
Yeah, and
go ahead, Ken. Yes, go ahead.
And can I? Okay, so it's my understanding that the consent has not been provided by all the entities. Therefore, the federal application for this project as a federal project has been withdrawn for the time being. Is that correct?
Yes, they changed the designation from a new starts to a small starts, which means that they don't have to have that much financial outlay to it in terms to get the match from the feds. But it doesn't mean that we can't turn it back into a new starts or to a bigger project. It just means we pulled the designation away so that we don't have to come up with like $200,000 to $300,000. That would be required for us to get a different designation.
Right. And so until everybody's on board and agreeing that this is, that every city that is involved can consent to it, the project is still on the drawing board. I don't know how.
Financially, they're still moving forward with projects. They're still moving forward with the timeline. They're just having a hard time interjecting the public input into that conversation.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment? Hiding behind some chairs. Not seeing any members of the public. What about committee members? Anything you have on your mind you want to lay on us? Awesome. We're going to end about 17 minutes early. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Another chance.